We're good. Go for it.
Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting of the Madison Board of Education Finance Committee special meeting to order. It is 6:36. We have two basic items on the agenda. First is we want to discuss or request to use 22-23 return funds to cover 23-24 special education costs. And secondly, we want to discuss 2024-25 budget reductions requests. So for the first item, Dr. Cook, maybe I'll let you.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, and Stacey Noplis is here and will certainly be helping me walk through this. So as the board is aware, we return funds to the town in really it doesn't happen until like September, but it's on June 30th. Anything we have not spent or encumbered and have a PO already issued is basically frozen and returned to the town. That's really Stacey's busiest time of the year. Certainly her dealings with the board, but probably in total, because we're also getting bills in at that time. So as you know from your own home budget, you get billed in July for things that happen in June and sometimes even in August. Transportation, there's last minute athletic events and things going on. There's electricity, there's gas, there's all those kind of monthly bills. And so it is a difficult exercise. Stacey is phenomenal in it. And one of the charts I'll hand out in a little bit is the money we have returned to the town historically. And I think what's good about the system is as much as we would like to be able to carry over more funds, and we're gonna, I think, have an opportunity to discuss that as a board and a finance committee going forward, because of some state laws that have changed and may even change going forward for us now. But the money's not lost. It goes back to the town, and at least on one occasion, while I've been here, we've asked for that back. So we asked for it back a year ago to fund armed guards for the first year of their inception, and then that money went into our budget. What we have discussed for use of that money this year, and we wanted to get to a point where we knew really where we stood with special ed, is the legislation changed after the board had approved it, after the administration presented its budget, after the board had approved its budget, and around the time the town was approving the budget. I think it was even after that. The legislation changed where students that are in the transition program, so students we are required to provide services to until the age of 22. It used to be that on their birthday month, they would exit the program. And so, oftentimes if a student had a birthday over the summer or even September, we would exit them working with the families in June. If they had a birthday in October, they typically would exit at the end of October and have a plan. With the new legislation, they go to the end of that school year. So they go to June 30th. So you can imagine, there were several students in that time frame that was additional cost for us, and to the tune of about $126,000. And so that combined with some other outplacements, we think that there's a good avenue and rationale to request for those funds to be returned. I do have a draft memo that with the finance committee's approval and the board's approval that we would send to the town. I'm gonna just pause there for any questions. I first want to pass out sheet that Stacey provided. Stacey, you have a copy?
I do.
Yeah, okay. And this is the funds we have returned in the past. As you can see, it's since 14-15 to now, it's ranged from 78,000 to 670. That's really an outlier due to COVID savings. There's many contracts that ended, employee costs that were saved. That was not unique to Madison for sure. But we are hitting about that 0.33, 0.5% of our budget is about what we return. We work with the finance committee and the board to be able to do some year-end purchases. The town supports that, so we're really appreciative of that fact. And we've done some great things with those funds. The Daniel Hand bridge furniture is an example of something the board approved for us to purchase last year. Half the bridge furniture, we're attempting to get the other half. So that's one piece. And then in terms of the special ed appropriation account. So as the finance committee is aware, we have $350,000 in a special ed appropriations account. This was designed, Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, when we were allowed to carry over 1% of our budget. We're currently allowed to carry over 2% of our budget. And so, we had built this money up over time. We have used it twice, to supplement our budget, but over time we have built that up. And so really this mechanism would be the town returning it to that fund and then us directly utilizing it is the way that Stacy and I are suggesting that this happened. We now can go, as I said, up to 2% of our budget. And this would be a future place I think we want to look at, because one outplacement could be in the range of $200,000 when you consider transportation even higher. And so $350,000 really only may cover 2 students that could become known to the district after the budget is set. So you have my suggested memo, and you have these 2 documents. We were looking for of course, to answer any questions, but if the finance committee could approve us to speak with the board tonight, that would be our goal, and then to send the memo tomorrow.
So I have some question. Probably just Stacy. So the audit takes place, what, July 1?
The end of the year is June 30th. The auditors don't physically come out until probably the beginning of September.
Okay.
They usually come to the Board of Finance November, December is when the audit is complete.
It's complete. And
Yeah,
it's-
it's a long process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my question would be, based on the time frame of the audit, and I agree, December is the time that it comes in. Why are we returning in September when the audit's not complete?
Because we can now no longer hang on to the funds. That is typical.
That's typical?
Yes, yep,
Okay, I
yeah.
just wanna make
yep.
sure.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the end of the fiscal year is June 30th. So
Okay.
I mean, we keep the books open in my office for the month of July for those
Okay.
items that Dr. Cook mentioned. Things do come in July for June.
Right,
Then the audit comes out. We don't finalize the numbers until the audit is issued, just in case there's any potential journal entries.
Yeah.
Which there have been.
we're lucky, that's good.
But yeah, we're not finalized till the audit is actually issued.
And at what point did we borrow, was it 40,000? From, or transfer at some point for 23-24?
So
Did
this
we use-
year, we had made a transfer, I
Yes.
believe, into special ed, correct?
Yes, or out of, in it?
For this past fiscal year.
Okay, was it the past one?
Yeah,
Okay.
we had during the finance committee
Yes.
meetings, we were short as well last year, and we found
Okay,
funds
thank you.
within.
Sorry. Yeah,
In the line item transfers. I think we did 2.
okay.
My
Yeah.
computer said,
Okay,
I can get back on the actual
Okay.
dates. And
and did we take out, or we borrowed from special ed, or we put
Internal,
in?
so
internal line.
I would always, that would be my preference, I know it's Stacy's preference as well. If we can make it up within our current budget, we're not gonna go touch the 350,000, and that's what we were able to do last year.
And that's kind of why we wait as well to, ask to withdraw from it, because we are trying to find the funds within before having to go and dip into the special ed reserve.
And this 226 that we're asking for would be for 23-24, correct?
This would, yes.
Are there any other questions?
Just a comment, I think this is, it's a wise way to conduct ourselves, to try and recognize that, we were subsequently seated with responsibilities that were costly, that the board didn't anticipate at the time of budgeting. I do want to reserve a moment after we finish this, I don't know if there's gonna be a vote to approve the memo, for example, and the action
Yes,
to receive that. After that, I'd like to come back to for a moment to one of these pages that were given in support of that. I'll shut it up, sorry.
okay. Well, maybe we should take a moment to review the letter.
Absolutely,
Yeah, okay, and then,
If I could, before you start on that, that memo was written, I think, 2 weeks ago. Stacy and I found out end of last week. As the finance committee may know, the reimbursement from the state is a moving target, so there's percentages that they're supposed to hit, but that's all a factor of all the money that all 169 school districts put in each year, requested each school district puts in, and then there's also relatively new a factor that for districts in Durgs A, B, and kind of more wealthier districts, there's like a greater reduction of the factor. So one, the state doesn't have enough money to fully fund the excess costs. Two, we have a reduction being Madison, and so that fund is kind of a moving target. We do not know, and so we were getting less money in that than we were expecting. So when I say it's trending at 96, I believe, or it's more entire, and there's a more negative balance than that as we stand today. So
okay,
we'll adjust that.
okay, and I mean, I know it's a moving target, but what might, we have a better idea of that? What?
We do now, yes, but we don't know the full. We know what we're getting back from the state because they stopped that on March 1st.
Okay,
So even if I knew that more students moved in, that number's not moving because they have to close their books, much like us. Yes, so we know we're getting 920 or so.
Yeah, I think it was around 923.
You just got this, yeah.
33% reduction from the 100% that we were hoping to get back.
Right.
So, and that was much, that reduction was a lot higher than we had budgeted for. So that was a surprise.
Now, did I hear though that instead of 135,000, it's now in the neighborhood of 126,000 on the 22-year-old?
No, that's 135. That number's steady. I believe I did say 126, but thank you. But the 95 is higher.
okay,
It's a higher negative.
Should be higher than 95. Thus exacerbating the problem further, we should point out for the.
Right, and one of the difficult things that we talked about this at the legislative breakfast, the legislators were given a number of 25 million. That if they approved in the budget that this would be fully funded or fully funded at that time. They did that thinking this would greatly help towns and cities, and that hasn't. I mean, it just was, playing catch up, and so they're still behind. So I think we have to continue to deliver that message to our local legislators in the state that they need to fully fund this.
How, right,
go for it.
how does the resignation that's on, the agenda tonight affect, if any, this? number?
Relatively new teacher, 3 years in, I believe. And so we will fill that with a building sub, so there's very little difference in salary costs for that. And then,
So, right, so could the argument be, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, that because of that tiny bit of savings, that we don't need all of that 226?
we will be in a negative balance of more than 226, but yes, I think we got to be
Okay.
prepared if that,
Okay.
argument is just that.
All right, so then, so we would want a motion to approve this letter with the final number to be filled in, or as is.
I think if you can
Move to,
move to approve the memo with the $95,000 to be updated
Okay,
in the board.
right, okay, and that we would take action on this tonight at the board of ed meeting. Do we need to add an agenda item? We do. And we can do it.
Do we need to do it now? When do we need to?
You can't
We
have
do it
the
tonight.
actions.
No,
Right. No, I mean,
we
you
can
can
do
do
it
it
ahead.
in the
Yeah,
regular.
Yes.
during the,
Yes.
we can do it, right?
You
Yeah,
would add it
ideally,
at the end.
if we could, I think, that, yeah, it'd be helpful time wise to.
Yeah.
Thank you, right?
So even with this 226 return of funds, we're still at a negative $95,000 in the special ed.
We will be at a negative dollar amount that's still being determined because we still have. You know, months to go.
Months to go.
And students, bills are coming in. But yeah, we will be at a negative part that we hope to make up elsewhere within. Either the special ed budget. That's part of the reason why we're, you know, putting more money into the special ed budget for next year.
Okay. Thank you. So, I'd, like the motion, to accept the draft of this letter from Dr. Cook, to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance. And then secondly, a motion to, recommend it to the full board. So I guess we have two motions. Well, we'll come out with one, I suppose, right? So I need a motion, to recommend this letter to the full Board of Education today.
So moved.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Fine.
Aye. Thank you, motion carries. All right. Thank you. Seth, did you want to?
Yeah, thank you. In support of what you guys just voted on. There was a sheet that was handed out at this meeting about the return of funds to the town. And it shows a history of the return of funds to the town. I just wanted, since this came up and in response to this, I wanted to kind of qualify this in some way. Because at the same time, returning funds every year has the dual impact of being very positive because it shows the excellent controls and management that are implemented by our finance director, by the superintendent, by our administration, and very conservative management. And it shows we are doing an excellent job. At the same time, it has the perverse impact of making it appear to certain folks in town that and perhaps other boards and commissions that the school board is operating in a fluff zone where there's extra money and in our budgets. And I just want to dispel that myth. And I want to just briefly discuss like some of the items that contribute to why our, our management would allow us to return as much as, an average of $240,000 a year over the last 3 years, for example, to the town. And it begins with the fact that we don't have all the information. A budget document is a planning tool. You try and get it as close as you can to on target. But when we have huge things like our health insurance experience rate and the rate of increase, the percentage of increase that we're going to face that year or decrease, is unknown until after our budget is passed. And that's our second biggest budget line. If you're off by a 0.5%, that could be a significant amount of money. Right, so if our experience comes in, if our rate comes in, a 0.5% lower than what was predicted at budget time, that could be $30,000, $40,000, $80,000 in savings right there. The other thing is sometimes we have, like we just discussed, a resignation mid-year. And if you have a teacher with any tenure who resigns unexpectedly, maybe they have a health issue, maybe they, go to take more money in another district, or something like that, then sometimes that will have an impact if we bring in a substitute or a lower paid younger teacher to fill that position. That could be another $20,000, $30,000. So there are other, budget lines that you know, depending on the amount of snow we get in a given year, we like to set a careful, conservative amount for snow removal. But every time it snows, I think it's like $20,000 or $30,000 per storm. And if it's a big storm, it could be double that. And so, you know, if we have $60,000 budgeted for snow and we only have one major snowfall, we only use 20 or 30,000 of it, there's, you know, 20 or 30 or 40,000 right there. So I just want to be very clear to other boards who may be watching. I want to be clear to the public that you know, kudos to our administration for managing expertly to make sure that we don't end up in the red at the end of each year. Sometimes we even end up doing mid-year embargoes on lines to make sure we don't go over. And then on the other hand, you know, we keep faith with the town and with the taxpayer and the voter by returning these funds instead of finding alternate ways to spend the money to the nth dollar. And so, you know, we do require in such an instance the cooperation of the other two boards, the selectmen and finance, when we ask for a favor like this, for them to recognize that you know, we weren't playing any funny business with the budget. You know, we went down to the exact dollar we ended up spending. We moved to return the rest. But then if we have a special need like this, if we could get cooperation in getting it filled, and also not expect the following budget cycle to be bludgeoned with, you know, our own expert management and careful conservative budgeting into you know, the having to spend less because other, you know, sister board members assert that there's fluff in our budget. So I just wanted to make that statement. I wanted to make it clear that's how our budgeting works. That's how budgeting in every town works, if it's working well. And I, you know, I just kind of feel the need, quite frankly, to defend our turf a little bit in that regard.
I don't have that feeling that other boards feel like we have fluff in our budget at all. I think that they are cognizant of the fact that there are variables in our budget that we have absolutely no control over, i.e. asking for this money back. And I think that they would be receptive to that. I think they are positive about the education and the administration of the school. I think that they are professional when they actually review the budget, and I would like to say thank you to them. I think they've done a phenomenal job, and I think most of them, if not all, would understand the position that we're in and be just receptive to that. I don't at all feel, and I've spoken to some of them, I don't at all feel like they think that there's fluff anywhere.
Well, but there were statements during the meeting where they
well,
said, but they return 200,000 or more every year.
well, they may say that, but, and it's true, we do. Right? But there's a time that we need to go back and, again, variables happen. So, and I think that they're an intelligent group of individuals, as are we. And I think that us being professional to them and vice versa just proves a lot. So I'm fine with this. I'm not a big believer in giving back. I understand why we do it. I get it. I know we went back and forth a little.
Yeah.
I do get it, but this is reality. This is where we are right now. And I think that all the boards would have an open mind and be receptive to this.
I think so, and I also think that our track record speaks for itself. I
Yes.
mean, there's a 5-year average increase of like 1.2% or so. We run a lead budget, Stacy and her team brings it home, you know, 50 basis points every year, so I think
Yeah.
the evidence is clear, speaks for itself, that that it's a well-managed operation.
And I, sorry, excuse me, I believe that they believe that with Stacy as well. So that is a compliment. And so I do believe that. So I think that we're being fair, we are being professional. And I mean that to Craig. And I believe that they will see our need and not feel as though there's extra and, you know, we shouldn't, you know, just kind of play around with it, so.
And we are cooperative because the next item on the agenda is
Yes,
to
go
discuss a possible reduction on top of it, you know, below the already low annual increase, so.
And I think just wrapping up that memo, I think the way to change it without changing any number, I would suggest we, instead of approximately, we could change it to at least 95,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
That kind of covers
I agree.
that, and we could put that to bed. We have a few minutes in between, so to print it out, yeah, thank you for the board, yeah, thank you.
We should just like blank line.
Fill in the blank.
So as mentioned, I met with the administrative team, we shared some ideas on, the reduction, and I think what I'll first show is those highlighted lines. Where we indicated to the board, we would look at the reduction when we initially thought it would be around $200,000. So, you can see we took some funding out of the right to read, reading mandate. We took the band uniform money. We took the final phase of the bridge furniture for $40,000. We also took furniture from Jeffrey in Ryerson. And how those will be addressed, I'm gonna start from the bottom working up. The way the furniture requirements are, and where things are still, that is one area that hasn't really come back to the normal order time frame. So Bill has shared with us that if we waited till July 1 to order this, that we may not have them in by the start of the school year. So he has found money within his accounts. He's got to take his maintenance funding and purchase those desks and furniture. So those two items, the smallest of the two items, will be taken care of in this current year budget. We're going to put the bridge furniture on hold at this point. We're going to put the band uniforms on hold at this point. I really hope we can commit to look for that. I don't know if that's end of the year funds or if it's a special appropriation from the town. I feel like we've, you know, that's gotten probably the most attention of any single budget item in the entire town and board budget. It got discussed quite a bit, and I think it's something I don't want to bring back again next year. And I feel like in keeping with how we treat other student organizations, that would be the way to go. And then finally, the right to read mandate, we do now know we have till 2025 at least. I'm hoping, you know, I think we're all hoping either we receive the waiver, be given additional time, or find some other path forward. So my current thinking is that the remaining funds of $32,000, we'd like to take that out of the potentially the reading waiver or other areas. I'm meeting with the administrative team again tomorrow. But you know, that's what we're thinking at this point. It still would leave some funding in there for Gail to refresh some classroom libraries, which would certainly be welcome and be moving us towards you know, a strengthened reading program. But that would require in some ways the board's commitment to, you know, not adopting a reading program. And I feel in terms of working with the board and talking to individual members that that's where the board is at. But I think we'll have to have some discussions down the road.
So are we taking action on this tonight?
No, but I think we're still in kind of wait and see mode. The other piece, and the reason why I'm not sure if we want to take action even at this point, when we were reduced last year, we waited till the budget was finally approved and then took action, because you could have to take action now in April and then take further action in May if we ever were reduced.
Okay.
That's been the tact of the strategy of the board at this point, but I think just as last year, we kind of gave some indications of where we thought we would be, so we wouldn't be, you know, behind the eight ball in May. So we scrambling to.
I'll just give the report to the board tonight.
Yes.
So just to clarify, currently there is furniture in Ryerson kindergarten, first grade, third grade. This would just be like updates and replacements, not like we're taking furniture items.
These are one classroom each,
Yeah.
for those that they needed for the additional, like a bubble class
Okay,
going up, yeah,
Okay.
yep.
So if we had to part with that money for the furniture, it's not like we don't have students and teachers in need of that furniture in one class in each of those instances. It's just we would find a way.
We're finding a way this year, yep, to get it done.
So two questions.
Sure.
With the reading, the right to read reading, so remember we had that meeting in February and we were kind of going back and forth with the 140. Right, was that the amount? So now that's changed and we're taking $50,000 out of that,
So we
or
had
100?
We had started off with 600,000 when
Yeah.
administration was doing it, and I notified the board of that potential. We decided to take the tact of asking for 106,000, which would start us down that
Mhm.
path when we knew we had till 2025. So now we're taking a step back even further than that, to at least 56,000 is our recommendation. And maybe even further on that, which would mean if the board so decided, or we were required to do the reading waiver down the road, that you know, we would need to find a significant funding source, whether it's a future budget or a one-time appropriation, which was mentioned when we talked to the Board of Finance. That was my understanding, kind of that thing, that if this was a one-time purchase, we may want to talk to the Board of Finance for something like that, rather than put it in operating costs. But I think we've got support from all the boards, as I've presented to them, that, you know, our reading program is obviously showing results. It's obviously you know, well supported by the district, by the community, and that we don't feel that we should be purchasing you know, a kind of off the shelf program for that.
So, this is a good illustration of what's going to be a base year effect if we keep our base so low. And we have to fund a reading program, or there's inflation, or there are other needs. Eventually we will see higher year-over-year percentage increases, and that's the trade-off we're making by accepting these cuts today.
I think that's an excellent point. I mean, for an example, in this current year budget, we had a curriculum PE health lead for about $90,000. So that position was ending. We clearly showed that reduction. And then that helped, as you said, with kind of the base budget. If we had received full funding of our budget request at 341, we would have started next year's budget process off with a $90,000 savings in band uniforms, you know, approximately $60,000 savings in furniture that then could have been applied to other things.
Right.
So I think that that's something we do need to be aware of, that these cuts, although we find ways to make it work, do have an impact.
Right, and then I believe, Stacy, our debt, the debt load is going down, rolling off.
Yeah.
Within
This
2
is the
years,
last
this is
year.
the last year, so that's
Next
another
year we
factor.
We will see savings next year just because it's going from this level
Right.
to zero, but then that is it.
Right. So there'll be a bit of an optical illusion when we look at year-over-year in the future because of these factors, because of these cuts.
And that'll raise our average.
Yeah.
You know, that we've been, and we'll probably still end up among the lowest.
Yeah.
Increase percentages proposed in the state.
Yeah, the numbers that we've shared earlier are still holding. I know our neighbors in Guilford are at 5%. I think our neighbors in Clinton are just under 5%. So it's, you know, that's at least the going rate, and that seems to be, you know, significantly higher in some other places.
So I just, another comment. So where are we getting the 32,065 or 62 from? And just for me to say that I see that we're keeping the paper towels in there for the 15,000. So we're keeping paper towels, but we're getting rid of band uniforms. Just to, I know there's a differential, a big differential, but, and I'm hearing the paper towels are all over the
Well,
floors.
Okay, so going back, let's answer the 32,000.
Yeah,
What does
32.
that represent? So,
where are we getting that?
So, that would be, my intention would be to talk to my administrative team tomorrow and looking at the right to read waiver mandate information. So like out of that 56, reducing that even further. Yeah, because we feel we're not going to be instituting anything new for 24, 25. Right, and now they backed it up a year.
So why even bother then? You're having, then you're gonna end up with $24,000.
We refresh classroom libraries with that, you know, funding, so it does start to move us towards, and we have, the latest is we have sent a letter, as you know, back to the, State Department of Ed, so we still have hopes that those conversations could lead to, you know, a suggestion by the State Department of Ed to maybe, you know, an implementation of some portion of a program or something. You know, we do have foundations and we have Hagerty right now, so we have pieces that we have purchased, and so that could be used towards that. We're, you know, like I said, we're working on those conversations. And then in terms of the paper towels, I think we're following
We don't have to.
direction, but yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
right, that's, well, thank you and your team for finding the very painful cuts.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So just a question, so
Sure.
this presentation here will go then to the Board of Finance?
No,
Or-
how
How does that all, like, how,
we communicate with Stacy and
Stacy.
the Board of Finance makes their cuts, and then we're. You know, the board at some point, I would think after the May vote, would make a final determination, this is the final budget for us, and then we'd send that to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance.
So it'll come back to the finance committee, then to the Board of Ed proper. Both will vote in favor of a final version of cuts. And then we'll have our new final budget.
Did I miss anything?
No, I was
Okay.
just going to say that on Thursday, the legal notice will be in the paper. So you will see the Board of Ed is listed in there, and there's one line item under the Board of Ed that says, I think, Board of Finance reduction, and it shows a 240, so until it's voted and moved forward, we're just showing it as an unallocated reduction by the Board of Finance.
Thank you, Stacy, also. Yeah.
Well, it's productive and informative session. Do we have any questions from the audience or online? Hearing none, do we have any questions to wrap up here?
I do have just one question, the cafeteria contract, is that, when is that being presented?
I hope we have that back from Chipman and Goodwin. It's now Chipman and Goodwin. By the end of next week, and then, you know, we're on break next week, but by the end of next week, we bring it to the board. Either at the second meeting in April or the first meeting in May.
Well, let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 7:00.